we're after what kind of business process and process controls exist or don't exist within this organization. And if they don't exist, then we need to kind of take steps to make some other changes to ensure that they do.
Mr. Gibbons, do we know whether or not they don't have the records, or they are simply refusing to give us the records?
We have gone to the booster's office, and the records are just scattered around. Like I have, we found some bank statements from 2016, but we didn't find all of them. So
The question is, how far do we want to go there? There's a way to get them. It'd be a very unpleasant way.
yeah, and the current administration is willing to work with us. They've been very cooperative.
But the current administration
Doesn't matter.
is somewhat hamstrung by the past records that people are not turning them over. And there's a very unpleasant way to get them. And let me hear some comments from some of the board members.
We need Trustee Dortch on this. He's the one. That's
Yeah,
working with these
Dorch
guys.
has been working with them, but I think the committee can make a recommendation on moving this forward. I mean, this has been going on for a while. Now we have new leadership, and they just came on board. They're making access to the files, but in fairness, they probably don't know where the files are. So I think that, this committee could easily make a reco that says, we want to go through the gymnastics of getting these files irregardless of what it takes, right? And then I think from there, once we do that, we're going to need to decide. We can make assumptions on what the data is going to say. Then what do we do? So I think, not being on the committee, I would, and maybe we want to wait for Dortch to return, but I think that the committee could clearly make a reco on, moving this a step forward to require the files through legal means.
Somebody knows whether the records are in existence or non-existence. And we've been doing this dance now just about ever since I've been on this board. And it comes to a time where we're going to have to sunset this issue. I would suggest that we hear a report back from Trustee Dortch. And once we hear his report, I have a suggestion that I'm not going to make now. But the suggestion that I will make will not be very palatable to those individuals. I know ways to get them, but the way that I would get them will cause severe consequences if things are not correct. So my suggestion is that we get a report from Trustee Dortch, and then we'll move from there, and
And maybe we can have a special call to.
we can have a special call, and if we still get to run around, I'll harken back to my older days. Anything else, VP Givens?
we have one last item.
Okay.
I wanted just to provide an overview of where we are on our follow-up to audit findings, and these are findings that for reports that were issued through April 30th, 2017, with an expected implementation date of May 31st or earlier. Currently, we've got the findings classified into their finding rating category, with, of course, red being the high, yellow as moderate, and green as low. And we've also further classified it as to whether or not the finding is late, which would mean that the finding was not implemented by the implementation date that was provided when the audit was done, or the audit was revised, or the finding was revised, which could mean it was implemented with a different type of corrective action date or no longer relevant. And I'll just comment on those 5 that we show as revised. Those related to the audit of the Rattler boosters that we did that became no longer relevant once the university took over the game day parking and a couple of other issues. The findings that we show as open are those where the implementation of the corrective action date has not occurred yet, or we are in the process of validating whether or not the corrective action has been implemented. Closed would indicate that the finding has been implemented on time. So you can see that of the late findings constitutes 12%. And the open findings is, of course, the largest category where we're working to have those done. We hope in the next couple of months that will be a priority for us to determine where we are on those. And then we had the 8% that was closed. Now, of the late findings, I gave you a brief description of the 6 that were late. They were all classified as moderate. All on those we have circled back with the individuals and departments so they will keep working on the implementation of the corrective action plan. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay, any comments?
How does this page relate to the previous page again?
These are the 6 late findings.
Can you go back to the previous page? When you say late, okay, so tell me about the red open ones. You said you think you'll be able to close those in the next 60 days? Is that a formal?
That's correct.
Is that a firm date or we're going to check in date?
No, we're working on those now. So we expect to have the validation done within the next couple of months for all the findings where the corrective action date is in that time period. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure. Are you committing to that 60 days or you're not committing to that 60 days?
We're committing to do that, yes.
Okay. Then that answers my question.
Okay.
Go, any other comments?
I guess just going, if I could.
Go ahead.
Okay. Going to the next slide, slide 27, there are 2 that are listed in there at the very bottom, 5 and 6. It says the procedures implemented did not correct the issue, additional procedures to be implemented. So I'm assuming that what happens once a finding is determined that the individual arm, area, department, division is given an opportunity to develop those procedures. Is there any weighing in? Everybody just agrees that that is what's going to happen and that is likely to address the solution? Because I'm thinking, because they would have met the original timeline, but then we get to the end where it's not something that resolves it, or maybe they implemented something, they just had to try it. What do you normally find in those instances with 5 and 6, that the solution wasn't appropriate at the onset, or what?
Yeah, and those 2 instances, the procedures that were implemented did not solve the problem. And this has been a kind of a common theme with the decentralized cash collection points, is what we're after is to have the entity reconcile sales or revenues with the amounts deposited, and what we're just not seeing that. And even though we thought we had it solved when we went through the audit, because we'll sit down and try to show the departments what we need done or what needs to be done, and in these cases they were just it just didn't get done.
Do we have any indication when those things dealing with 5 and 6 will be corrected? You said you needed to introduce, add additional procedures that will correct the problem. Do we have a timeline for that?
I have to check to see. We did get some new dates for getting it corrected. I'll have to get back with you on that.
Okay.
I
Chair
would
Lawson.
suggest that, as a normal course of business, because even on 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, like when we say a new target date, let's see what that is, what I mean? So we can have a concept of, is that 60 days? Is that 120 days? Or what are we talking about here?
Chair Lawson?
Yes. Well, no, I think you're toward the conclusion, obviously. I just think that, what we agreed to around this situation, and I'll do it here versus doing it in the DSO report. I want to bring our conversation to the Booster Club to a close, right? This has been 7, 8, 9 months worth of dialogue. So let's wait till Dortch returns. Let's have the conversation with him, and then let's go quickly from there to the audit committee taking this back and determining what's there, what can we do, what can't we do, and let's bring it to a close. Because my guess is we're burning dollars with Ernst & Young throughout this process. So let's try to just bring it to a close, and then legally, what's next? How do we let the new organization with the new leadership move forward without this baggage? Because none of those folk were a part of this. So I really want to kind of bring this to a close and let the new team, take it from here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, is there any other business before this committee, folks? If not, this meeting is adjourned.
You have the next one, law school.
Yes. All right, the next one is the law school. We'll change the folks out for that one. Dean, if you come forward, please. Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to welcome you to the meeting of the Florida A&M University Board of Trustees Special Committee on the College of Law. This meeting is called to order. Attorney Barge Miles, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Grable,
Here.
Trustee Perry,
Here.
and for the record, Trustee Woody had a conflict with his employer, so he will not be able to make the meetings today or tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the approval of our meeting of March 15, 2017. The minutes were posted on the website, and I trust that everyone has had an opportunity to review them. Are there any corrections? If not, can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'm in a difficult position, but I'm going to second it anyway.
Absolutely.
All those in favor by the sign of aye?
Aye.
Okay. I chaired a couple of meetings ago when we met as a full board. There were some discussions about the School of Law as a result of the last bar results. And we sort of wanted to take a look at where we were with the law school. And this committee met, and we made a list of 10 items for our review. And that was the American Bar Association accreditation, the bar passage rate, faculty in terms of quality and composition, recruitment, job placement, internships and clerkships, student morale, attrition, and the community's perception of our law school, and communication plans and strategies. We've asked our current Dean Leroy Purnell, to provide an update on the current status of the 2012 ABA issues and share with us his newly drafted program improvement plan and provide us some updates on the 2016-2017 budget. I would like to add this particular comment. When Dean Purnell was the dean, we saw a dramatic uptake in the bar passage rate. I remember going over to the law school swearing in a class, and at that time, I believe that was the third highest passage rate of. We ranked number three that time in the entire state uh, in the bar passage rate, and I remember swearing that class in, complimenting Dean Purnell on the excellent work that he had done at that time. So with that, I will ask Dean Purnell to go ahead and share those particular items that I've just outlined.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Good afternoon. I've had the privilege since May 2nd to look at a number of these items. The ABA will be conducting its sabbatical accreditation visit in September of 2018. The specific date's not been set yet for that. In anticipation of that visit, the College of Law will be engaged in preparing self-study as well as strategic plan for the College of Law this fall. It's also my plan to bring on a consultant as well to help us prepare that report. The College of Law is currently in full compliance with the American Bar Association accreditation requirements. There are no current report back findings in place. As I have shared with the committee in the past, based on my experience and understanding of both the accreditation process and where we are at the College of Law, I believe that the issues that we will face at accreditation, the questions that will be most on the mind of the accreditation staff will relate in part to bar passage. In part, bar passage is something that's being considered nationally. We are currently in compliance with the bar passage provisions of the accreditation standards. There are at least two ways to comply. We are in compliance with both of those ways, but I've taken the position and maintained that that's not a point of stopping for us. I think that we have the ability to improve passage beyond simply the minimum necessary for compliance. But closely connected with the bar passage and of importance to the ABA will be a review of our plans in place for preparation of students for success in law school, looking at attrition rates. Our attrition rate and the look back period will probably go from 2012 to the date of the site visit. Our attrition rate has improved overall, and the ABA looks at attrition both in terms of academic attrition and non-academic attrition. Our current academic attrition rate is for first-year attrition is holding at 18%. I believe that we can improve that significantly. And that leads to the other area that the ABA will be looking at, and that is what types of programming do we have in place to assist students, particularly at the bottom of the class credential-wise coming in. Those are the students who are most at risk on bar exam. And we already have an aggressive academic support program, but I believe that there is a need to revamp that program. I anticipate presenting a fairly aggressive revision of that program that also includes looking at issues such as the bar fee. I would hope to have a plan available for review in September on how we might move forward with a much more aggressive program that really begins to meet the needs of our students. We're beginning that already this fall, that is in August, with what we call the Foundations Program, which will be a greatly expanded period of time prior to entry of law school that is mandatory for our entering students, that will focus on imparting skills to them necessary for success, and what I think is probably most important, allow us some diagnostic tools for which students need the most attention. And so I am meeting with the staff of and the leadership of the Foundations program next week, in fact, to review how that program is in place and to make sure that the diagnostic function, which I'm particularly interested in, that's in place and will do the job so we can identify those students in need, which will help reduce attrition rate and also guarantee success in the other areas. We've just completed an external review of the Career Services Office. I talked with the external reviewer who has impeccable credentials from the University of Miami. She gave me her oral report, and she'll have a written report to me by the end of next week. Based on that report, I anticipate that we're going to be doing a substantial reorganization of our Career Services Office and meeting a number of the challenges that the report indicates are necessary. We've completed an external review of the clinical program, and we have a recommendation currently in the Office of Academic Affairs for the appointment of a new clinical director who will also oversee our excuse me, our externship field placement programs. That's also an important component of how we move forward. I would anticipate that under the director's leadership, I'm also going to assign additional staff to assist with both paid internships and internships for academic credit. There's a lot of opportunity in Orlando and in other areas, not just Orlando, that we can take a full advantage of. This also will involve greater integration with the community, professional community, and residential community in terms of providing services. We are going to be reviving our what I refer to as the Board of Visitors, so that they will not only just be an advocate for us, but also provide us avenues for experiential opportunities for our students. So there are quite a few things that we have in place, in motion. I think that there are clearly some challenges that have to be met. I want us to take a closer look at how we staff and our leadership for bar preparation in particular, because I think that there are some things we can do to improve that, to give more support to that effort. I think there's an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to partner with some of the bar preparation bar review companies to provide a very excellent service, and that will be part of the report that I'll have ready in September for review. Our current statistics, just to update the committee, we have one bit of good news. I've always maintained, and committee members may know something about my background, that I do have some expertise in recruiting, having been a trustee at the LSAC, and I always felt that at a very minimum, a law school needs to generate at least 1,000 applications a year. And I'm pleased to say that this year we've generated 1,200 applications. Our applications are up by 30%. Our deposits at this point are also significantly up from last year. There's still more work that we need to do with that class. We have an increase in both African American and Hispanic students, but I think we could do better in that area. And so one of the additional things that we'll be doing in the next month in terms of recruiting is I'm requiring that a strategic plan be developed by our recruiting office that not only looks at targeted recruiting, which I think is the future of law school recruiting. That is, you identify ahead of time the people that you want, and you go after them, and also looking with particular interest in improving our production of entering law students from our own institution, from FAMU, as well as a better structured plan for reaching out and cooperating with HBCUs across the country. So that will all be part of the strategic plan that I will be requiring from our recruiting staff within the next month. Those are sort of the high points of things that we have in place, and I would certainly welcome any questions or further inquiry.
In terms of recruitment, Dean, could you share with us the GPA of the students that we're recruiting and their LSAT score, the kind of range of it?
Yes, I can tell you we can look at the current paid deposits, for example, of which we have 134 current paid deposits. The LSAT average is 3.15. The LSAT top 25% of our deposits is 149 or better. And the median runs at 145 on LSAT. The median GPA runs at 3.2.
Trustee Bruno, I think you had your hand up.
Yes. How you doing, sir?
Yes.
So when we were down in Orlando for the hooding ceremony, I had an opportunity to speak with some of the recent graduates about some of their concerns. And you mentioned the career services reorganization that you guys are undergoing. So I imagine you guys are kind of in the works of how you're going to move forward with that. But they mentioned kind of a lack of focus, they're concerned about a lack of focus on job placement for students during their graduating year, like before or immediately after they take the bar. And I guess my question is, are there any steps that, in the process of reorganizing for you all in terms of your strategic plan in the career services office to provide or match students with, prospective employers, when they take the bar or, during their graduating year?
Many of those points were part of the external review that was just conducted of our career services office. Now, career services in law school is different than in many other institutions. It's not direct job placement the way you might experience in other disciplines, but one of the things that it should be doing is preparing our students to be competitive in the job market and opening up opportunities and contacts for them. So that we do need to do a much better job in that. That was the message from the external review. I expected that would have been the message, and that is the message that I'm receiving. And so I think that on those levels, in terms of preparing our students, whether it's providing workshops, opportunities to do mock interviews involving potential employers, we'll be looking at those things. In addition, I think the field placement program, which will open up externship opportunities for our students, is an important inroad into placement. In the area, for example, of my own discipline area, which is the criminal practice. I know from the time that when I was dean, regular dean, I guess, I suppose whatever it is I'm now, both the public defenders and the prosecutors associations told me that they are hiring students only who have some type of experience or placement in law school. And I think that's a very important for us to provide our students with the opportunity for those types of internships or clinical programs that allow them not only training, but exposure to the job market. And so I would expect us to be extremely aggressive in expanding those opportunities.
Okay. And you also mentioned that it doesn't work. It pretty much doesn't work the same way as it does at some other institutions. But does the office at the law school, the career services office at the law school, kind of partner with the one here on the main campus in terms of resources and support?
Well, I don't think it has done that in the past as much as it might.
Okay.
And this is actually one of the observations that the external reviewer mentioned to me, that there are some areas where there is a natural overlap. For example, with business. And opportunities for our students to participate, for example, in job fairs that might take place on the main campus or through the business department, and you know, vice versa. I think those are things that haven't been done in the past as much as they should, but I would anticipate with the restructuring that I would expect that to be done.
Okay.
You know, one of the best-selling product to get law students jobs or internships and clerkships, because then that way they are exposed not only to the employer, but the employer is exposed to them. I think if we really concentrate, and I think the dean has taken a very important step. I think a couple of weeks ago he met with Mahan Downs,
Yes.
who is the managing partner and president of Gray Robinson. And she has expressed an interest in working with the law school. And if we can get the major law firms around Orlando, and a number of those law firms are scattered throughout the state of Florida. Ray R. Robinson has an office here, Holland and Knight, Morgan and Morgan. That will open the door for our kids, and also with corporate America, get them involved with a number of these corporations that hire students. I would also suggest that the Board of Visitors take a serious look at having the greater Orlando community do for the FAMU Law School what they did for the UCF Medical School, is to get those same corporate partners who pump in scholarship dollars. So when the dean goes around recruiting the best and the brightest at these historical black colleges and universities, he can say, here's a free ride. And they have a choice of going in debt someplace else or coming to FAMU. But I think the dean is taking some good steps from what he said in getting the ship going in the right direction.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add a
Yeah.
point to what you've said, I also want to make a special mention of the opportunities that are available through our judiciary. Now, we're very proud of the fact that I think this year, and this is the first year that I can remember, we're being in a situation where we actually have 3 federal clerks. That is, it may seem like a small number, but it is significant for FAMU to have options in a very competitive market. And just as Judge Perry mentioned, so much of that is Trustee Perry. I'm sorry, I always call you Judge. But as mentioned, so much of that depends upon communications and contacts. And I think that we have to do more with that. Quite frankly, I've found a number of judges across the state who've expressed interest in providing opportunities. And I think we just have to present a organized, comprehensive program to match our students with those opportunities. Thank you.
Trustee Lawrence?
So, Dean, you give me enormous confidence, and I haven't felt that before. So, you strike me, if you'll pardon this, I'm not patronizing, as the real deal. You know what's going on, and you're getting it done. Let me ask you some basic questions just for learning. and I'll ask you all the questions because you can probably answer them in the same paragraph. How many students do you have overall? How many of them come from FAMU? How many of them are, or what percentage is African American, what percentage is Hispanic? And you mentioned 18% attrition, which didn't mean much to me without knowing what other law schools might do. So those are the questions.
And I apologize if I don't have all the specific numbers. I can give you as a general matter. Our law school right now is around about a total of about 450 students, combining our day and evening program. I think when we're given what's happening in the law school market right now, being down and depressed, health-wise, I think we probably want to be around 600. But it's going to take a while to get to that. About 45% of our students are African American. We have about another 20%, maybe slightly less, who are Hispanic Latino. That's been the pattern in the past. The field does look like it has changed. One of the things, as we look at this increase of students for next year, and you never know the exact numbers until they walk through the door. But paid deposits are our best indicator at this point. We have about, of the 134 current paid deposits, and they'll be paying deposits all the way up until start date. We're looking at 56 of those being African American. That's up from 50 from 2016, up from 49 from 2015. We're looking at Caucasian being 40, up from 19, so there's a significant jump there in the deposits. We're looking at Hispanic students, 26, up from 16 the year previous to that. In terms of, I don't have the exact number of students who are, or percentage who are FAMU students at this point.
What would you guess?
I'm guessing that we probably enrolled last year about 12 to 15 students who were FAMU students.
So there's a big opportunity there.
There's a big opportunity there. When my last turnaround in this position, we had initiated some programs to try to increase the FAMU students. One of the key, well, there were a couple of key components. One was something we call the FAMU All Stars program, in which we paid to bring in high-performing FAMU students who had not committed to the law school yet, or even in some instances not applied, and we sort of fed them for a weekend, and we had full support from the Orlando Magic, and later on from Disney, to provide them with a memorable experience and also participating in our classes. The idea being that they got to do that, and the only cost to them was give us an application. It's a program that worked for me very well when I was at Ohio State. We also began looking at efforts to work on what's sometimes called 3+3 programs, where we allow students who are FAMU students committed to other colleges in FAMU to be able to spend their last year, the last undergraduate year, as a first year in law school. And so I think that I'd like to revisit that to make sure that we're on track to do that, to expand that program, as well as our joint degree opportunities. I think it would be a mistake for us not to take full advantage of all the resources of FAMU. So students who want I think the MBA program, Friday Stroud, I guess when she's left, I'll talk. We've talked before about it, so I know she's on board with this. But MBA program in particular works well because at FAMU you can do that online, and we can work together with the law school, so a student could combine their efforts at getting both the JD and an MBA in a shorter period of time, less expense than if they would do those separately. So those are different types of things we can do.
About the attrition,
The attrition rate right now, as I said, 18%. And this is something that ABA is going to be looking very closely at. Usually, the flash point for them is if it exceeds 20%, then they're going to ask what are you doing about that. Now, as I said, they look at both academic attrition and non-academic attrition. Those are transfers and people who just don't come back. We've actually reduced the number of non-academic attrition, which was a significant problem for a long time. Students would perform well and want to leave to go to another school or feel uncertain about FAMU. We've been able to make a significant inroad into that. The academic attrition has improved. There were years where it was in excess of 18%. Part of that is tightening of some of our admission standards to make sure we're bringing in students who can succeed. But I think probably the biggest contributor to it not increasing anymore is the academic support program, which we have some mandatory programs for entering students in their first year, make sure that they have the skills necessary to succeed.
If I went to UM, FIU, FSU, UF, what would their attrition rates be?
They probably would range in the area of 14 to 18%.
Thank you.
Okay, N.A. Trustee Bruno?
And I wanted to take a second to when you responded to the comments made by Trustee Perry about the local firms that could possibly match up with the students. I think that's a great model. Putting in place some type of program, but a targeted program for those graduating law school students, where you could give employers an opportunity to actually interact with them and give them an opportunity. And then there was another concern that was brought up when I interacted with them. It's my understanding that the university developed a plan to give students access to debt counselors some years ago. And I wanted to know first, do you have track of or a record of the average debt amount that the students leave the College of Law with, after they graduate?
And again, I apologize. I should have that number right in my head, but typically, from what I recall, and I'm jumping that gap when I was in Dean's to pull on some of those numbers. But our debt load, first of all, our debt load is the lowest in the state as far as law schools are concerned. I think students at that point were averaging a debt load of between $35,000 to $40,000. Compared to, there are some schools I won't mention that have $100,000 debt loads. That's a significant advantage if for students to take. It's almost like a scholarship in itself. It's at the same time, and I think that one of the things that was being expressed to you is something that the ABA mentions as well. Even with that debt load, students do need counseling about that. We have too many students who come in and they spend all the money up front and they don't have any for the rest of their academic year or the following years. So that we do have a financial aid person on board at the law school. And I am going to be taking a look at how they're functioning, because I think one of the most important things for our students is to have not only that counseling, but also someone who can run interference for them in terms of managing different systems. I want our students to focus their time on their legal studies. I don't want them to have to spend an inordinate amount of times running back and forth. This is no slight to anybody on main campus, but I don't want them to spend time after running back and forth on main campus or calling on main campus to get things straightened out that we might be able to help straighten out for them.
Okay. And as a follow-up, if I could.
Well, we got about 4 more minutes.
Okay. So the just like we have the Office of University Advancement here, you guys have an Office of Advancement on that, like specifically to the law school, correct?
In terms of fundraising, you mean?
I believe, or fundraising and providing assistance.
This is we talked recently in Baltimore about this. We don't have a gifts officer or a person who's dedicated full time to fundraising. I think one of the challenges for us, we've talked with the foundation about this before, was to see if we can have a person who for whom the law school is part of their portfolio. We have a person who has a number of responsibilities. She helps with fundraising right now, but she's also doing communications and other types of events. And I think for us to really have aggressive fundraising and someone to lay the groundwork necessary for me to interact, we need to have more resource available in terms of somebody who can do that. I know there's some challenges within the university and the legislature about that, but it still is a need that we have.
And okay, so the funds that you do get, even though you have limited resources, are those dedicated to aiding those students to kind of?
Those are primarily used for scholarship.
Okay.
And that, as far as I'm concerned, that is the number one priority for our funds is scholarship dollars.
Okay, and do you know how much they're able to?
Last question.
I'm sorry. Do you know how much they're able to offer to students?
It really depends on the individual student. It can range anywhere from $1,000, $3,000 up to a full ride.
Okay.
The last item is a site visit. I'm going to ask Ms. Barge Miles to get with the members of the committee. Our chair has asked us to make a site visit, but I want to make that site visit. And at that site visit, I want to do a deep dive into 10 listed items so we can report back to the committee this September on where we stand on those particular items. So I'm going to ask, what I would like to do is probably meet, say, just using a Wednesday at 6 o'clock and cover some items from about 6 to 8:30, and then do a day starting like at 8:30 the next morning and trying to conclude by 3 or 3:30 the next day. Anything else? Because we have exhausted our time. I would like to thank Dean Purnell. I would like to thank him for the good work that he's done. He's hit the ground running and has addressed a number of concerns that I personally had. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay, we will take a break until 4 p.m. and we will then reconvene with the direct support organizations.